Hey there, this is Teri with Where to Find Bread, Season 3, Episode 3. I hate to cry, and I would rather have my fingernails pulled out with pliers than admit that my feelings are hurt. It never occurred to me that there might be a darn good reason for that. I didn't know. I don't remember being assaulted. I was grabbed by a white man who had the power to make the black man who rescued me take the blame for a heinous crime against an innocent 5-year-old girl skipping down a jungle path in Uganda. When I started therapy, I only knew that I had family of origin issues and that I don't cry. I started internal family systems work, I'll call it IFS, with my therapist, and I was making good progress. But it did seem to me curious that I don't cry. So we began digging, and I met an internal protective part of me that I named Crybaby, an IFS part who cries, she said, on my behalf. When I asked why, she said, someone has to, so I do. Why? Because she remembered, and the role she took on that day, expressing my emotions and allowing me to keep quiet, was making sure that it never happened again. My rescuer, our Ugandan cook, a good man named John, warned me not to cry, not to tell anyone about it. I didn't, not then and never since. Crybaby followed John's admonitions explicitly. She insisted that I keep secrets to myself, and from then on, there were a lot of secrets. That day, I was labeled victim. That label crippled me. It weighed me down. It was like a dog whistle to the worst of humanity, constantly out trolling for weak, vulnerable targets. The label made me fearful and kept me from achieving my potential. It planted seeds of hostility and hate within me that I didn't even know existed. Hate for my parents who weren't there to protect me, for those who shielded entitled men who prey on females like me, and for anyone who sensed the label and kicked me to the curb. And there were a lot of those. IFS helped me shed my label and the hatred. IFS is a therapeutic model that was developed by Dr. Richard C. Schwartz, that his website, ifs-institute.com, says, quote, views every human being as a system of protective and wounded inner parts that are guided by a core self. It teaches that the mind is naturally multiple and that this multiplicity is healthy because, like members of a family, inner parts can be pushed into extreme roles, but also have valuable inherent qualities. IFS helps people access their undamaged, compassionate self, which knows how to heal, and from that inner leadership, understand and transform their parts, fostering both inner and outer connectedness. I explained about IFS previously in taking over your internal boardroom, so I'm not going to go back into it, but make sure you watch that one. It's where I introduced you to some of the protective parts of my personality, from Madam Chair to Chatty Cathy, and even the exiled parts that I found hiding in the dark hold of an internal ship. At that point, I had yet to meet Crybaby. After she told me about my assault, I realized she wasn't just managing my 5-year-old emotions. She was a childish protector herself, one with few options. IFS teaches that parts are frequently formed at the age when significant things happen to us. So Crybaby's age is 5. Now, she couldn't use a rational thinking brain because hers wasn't totally developed when I was assaulted, or even mostly developed. It was only partially developed when I was assaulted and when she began protecting me. She reacted to all new perceived threats the only way she knew how, which was don't cry, don't tell. IFS calls these burdens emotional pain, negative belief, or energetic imprint that a part holds on to due to a past experience or experiences. I couldn't be angry with her, but neither could I continue letting her run any part of my boardroom without big changes. I, self, had to step in and take control. Dr. Schwartz's process is that the self, also called the client, expresses gratitude to the part for protecting her and reassures her that I can keep me safe from now on. Also, that crybaby is asked if she'd like to take on a new role, even a new name, one that will be helpful and assist the other parts to function together as a harmonious whole. For example, she could choose to be an advisor on boundaries or a sage dispenser of wisdom. It's up to her. I suspect we'll discover a whole new direction for Crybaby in the coming weeks, and a new name, too. In the meantime, I've been working my way through the 26 Days of Fresh Bread coloring book and journal, and this week I landed on the letter H, which stands, according to my book, for healing. It centers on how words have the power to define us. It says, words are more than just sounds. They are the architects of our identity. When betrayal strikes, we often reach for labels like damaged or broken, as if we're ceramic pots that have been dropped or relegated to the scrap heap. However, a pot is a fixed, lifeless object. You are not. To move forward, we must let go of the language of the ash bin. I could certainly see how the word victim was an architect of my identity. If I had to paint a portrait of myself, I would have been dressed in muted colors and I would have shuffled as I walked. I would be bent over, walking slowly, eyes to the ground, voice soft and tentative. Now, that may not have been how everyone perceived me, but I believe that anyone with a sensitivity to such things immediately recognized my internal victim status and positioned themselves in a superior position to take advantage of me. And they did. Like the day I was walking across an empty schoolyard and a Mercedes car screeched to halt on a nearby street and began tracking along with me. I was a little concerned as I watched it, and finally the car roared off, and it stopped ahead of me in a phone booth a block away. When I walked past it, there was a woman there, and she yelled, "Didn't you see that guy in the bushes? He was really creepy, and he was watching you." He saw a victim. Or the time I was with a guy one morning, and he began having a conversation with his dog about bitches and what he'd like to do to them. I knew I was in a dangerous situation, and I knew to keep quiet and leave. He saw a victim. Another time, a guy I had invited over for a meal arrived very drunk, and he was belligerent toward women in general and dismissive toward me. I kept quiet again because he saw a victim. There was the time when I was a teenager and I was camping with my parents in the south of Chile, and a young policeman rode up on a beautiful horse. I was horse crazy, and I wanted to ride. So he offered to take me on a ride, and I badgered my parents until they said I could go with him. He took me to his parents' home in the nearby mountains, and he kept asking me if he could jump on behind me and ride, and I wouldn't let him. So we visited with his family a little bit, and on the way back down, we came to a road, and my parents, my mom had had some sort of a intuition that she just needed to be there, and they drove up. And his plans, whatever they were thwarted. I got in the car with them and we drove off. He was angry, but he was unable to do what it was that he had planned. He saw a victim. Another time, it was 1980. President Carter was trying to get the Iranian hostages released and beat Ronald Reagan so he would have a second term. The pundits were talking about getting the hostages released as Carter's October surprise. This guy came over to visit me in my trailer, and I didn't know he was like this, but he said conspiratorially and quite seriously, "I am Carter's October surprise." He saw a victim. And then there was that time I was in my living room alone with a guy I had gotten to know while working in a local dance club. He was introverted, kind of cute, but he liked alcohol and drugs. And as he sat quietly in an easy chair, not meeting my eyes before I had to go to work, he told me that he had finally gotten to the point where he said, I could kill someone. I knew better than to look at him or say anything. And I got out of there really fast. He saw a victim. Two, there was more than one occasion when I could literally feel danger in a room full of guys who were thinking about abusing me. They were leering at me. One time I was at a swimming hole with a group of boys and girls, and everyone but me and two guys climbed back up the embankment to our cars. I was trying to gather my clothes and join them. I could just sense danger, but it was as if I was moving in slow motion. I just couldn't get my clothes together, and everybody was leaving. Finally, there were just the two guys and me, and one of the guys walked toward me, licking his lips and saying what he'd like to do to me, and it was sexual in nature, and didn't sound like a lot of fun. Fortunately, the other guy said, "Come on, let's get to the car." And they left me to come up the embankment after them. He saw a victim too. Finally, I can't tell you the number of times I have been eligible for jobs and passed over because some leader sensed that label, or even the number of times that my own employees have taken advantage of me because they perceived I was weak. They saw a victim. I could feel it too. If you asked anyone not attuned to such things, they would absolutely deny it. To some, I looked confident and in control, powerful, smart, and in charge. But to those with intuition and the inclination to take advantage, if they would admit such things, they saw a victim, someone they could dominate and abuse. Thinking about all the ways the victim label has been a negative architect, and then addressing the fresh brain journal prompt challenged me to develop new labels for myself. Words have power. Labels can be architectural in the sense of the language of healing. But then I wondered, what if I leap right over healing to thriving? What if the words that I choose to be architects are more powerful than just healing? And I tried it out. I'm no longer a victim. I'm not healing. I am healed. I'm thriving. I take the label of beneficiary, where before I was inflicted with sorrow and shame by my status as a victim. Today, I am a beneficiary of the wisdom produced by my past. I am empowered, resilient. I no longer rely on how others treat me to frame how I see myself. I walk upright and I speak with a strong, clear voice. I love bright, vivid colors. I am a free agent. I am a beneficiary. I take the label of rescuer. I see the damage that labeling does. Now I reach back to help others who have been similarly mislabeled. I understand there's great freedom in choosing the right labels for yourself. I take delight in helping others rescue themselves. I am a rescuer. I take the label of victor. I am stronger in the wake of my victimization. I learned about my assault and I have processed my trauma. It no longer rules my emotions. I have successfully overcome adversity. Adversity has become my opportunity. And from now on, within adversity, I shall always look for opportunity because I am a victor. I take the label of thriver, where once I fought to survive from the devastation of my husband's betrayal, I came out on the other side. I am wiser and stronger, where once I fought to heal from an experience I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I am thankful for the growth it's afforded me. Where once I was isolated and alone, I now am surrounded by a caring community of people who understand what it's like to walk this road. And now, like one beautiful flower among many, growing vigorously from a cracked pot, we are transforming the world around us. I love my life. I am a thriver. And finally, I take the label of hero, because why not? No false modesty here. The odds that I would survive with so much stacked against me, let alone thrive, were not good, but I did. So I am a hero, and you can be one too. I see you. You have parts you're ashamed of, some of which you may not even be aware. Be curious, be brave and courageous. I did it. You can too. Internal family systems helped me to learn about myself and reconcile a part, crybaby, that for years had been responsible for keeping a label of victim intact and in charge of my life. You can rise above those words that have been negative architects too, but not if you don't know what they are. Name them, claim them, and deal with them. I have links to many resources, including the Fresh Bread coloring book and journal, and I will put those links and the links to the IFS resources below. Please check them out. And a well-qualified therapist is enormously helpful too. I am so glad that I made the shift to thriving this season, and I am so glad that you're here with me. To those of you who have asked me to cover what the professor and I have done to develop our new marriage, that is coming, I promise, along with much more. Please stay tuned for that. Finally, thank you for watching. It's such a privilege to get to know you and walk this path together. Please drop down below and subscribe to my YouTube channel and my newsletter. And don't miss a single blog post at wheretofindbread.us. As always, I treasure your comments and I read and respond to every one of them. Just look back at the other episodes and you'll see we are a community and you are welcome here. Carpe diem.